The Force flows through all living things, binding the galaxy together in an endless web of light and darkness, destiny and choice. But on this day, above the crystalline spires of Christophas, something entered the galaxy that the Force could not touch, something it could not see, predict, or understand. A wound in reality itself, bleeding a man who had no place in this war, this universe, or this fate. Frank Castle had been hunting arms dealers in a Brooklyn warehouse when the world tore open. Experimental tech, black market dimensional shrapnel meant for the highest bidder. He put 3 rounds into the device before it activated. The rift swallowed him whole, spat him through cascading hyperspace colors that defied physics, and ejected him into atmosphere above a city under siege. No parachute, no backup, just Frank, his tactical vest, and the smoking remains of the device fused to his forearm like a shrapnel burn. He hit the Durasteel rooftop of a Republic supply depot at terminal velocity, crashing through reinforced plating that shouldn't have given way. His body screamed, ribs cracked, vision blurred, but Frank Castle had survived worse: Kandahar, the carousel, the Russians' basement. Pain was an old friend. Below, the Battle of Christophas raged. Republic clone troopers in white armor advanced behind massive ATE walkers, their blue blaster fire exchanging volleys with Separatist battle droids whose red bolts carved through crystal architecture. The sound was wrong, not the crack of gunfire Frank knew, but the sizzling shriek of plasma weapons cooking air into superheated death. The smell was wrong too, ozone and melted stone instead of cordite and blood. Frank rolled behind debris, inventory automatic. No firearms, no ammunition. The device on his arm sparked once, then died completely. Whatever doorway it opened was closed now. Stranded. He assessed the battlefield with a soldier's practiced eye. 2 armies locked in urban warfare, Republic forces pushing towards Separatist shield generators while droid reinforcements poured from landing craft. Neither side had noticed him yet. A squad of battle droids climbed toward his position, their vocabulators chattering in mechanical monotone. Roger, Roger, Sector 7 clear, advancing to. Frank moved, grabbed a piece of debris, some kind of crystalline support beam, and brought it down on the lead droid's photoreceptor. Sparks exploded. The machine crumpled. Its companions turned, raising blaster rifles. Frank was already moving, using the falling droid as a shield. Red bolts scorched its chassis. He drove forward, years of close-quarters combat distilled into brutal efficiency. Ripped a blaster from mechanical hands, reversed it, fired 3 shots center mass into the nearest droid. The weapon kicked different, lighter recoil, plasma discharge instead of bullet. But killing was killing. 2 droids remaining. 1 fired wide. Frank didn't. The last droid managed a distress signal before Frank's commandeered blaster turned its head into molten scrap. Silence. Frank examined the weapon, DC-15S, according to stenciled Oribesh he somehow understood. Standard issue, unlimited ammunition via rechargeable gas chamber and power pack. He stripped parts from the destroyed droids, thermal detonators, energy cells, a helmet scanner. Footsteps, heavy discipline, not droids. Hold fire. The voice was human, authoritative, transmitted through helmet speakers. I've got eyes on an unknown hostile who just scrapped 5 clankers with their own hardware. Frank turned slowly, blaster lowered but ready. 5 soldiers in white armor emerged from cover, weapons trained on him. Their armor bore blue markings, Republic insignia, unit designations. But something was wrong about them. They moved in perfect synchronization, held identical firing stances, even breathed in rhythm. Clones. The word surfaced from nowhere, knowledge he shouldn't have but did. The dimensional rift had done something to him, fragmentary understanding of this galaxy bleeding into his consciousness like a half-remembered briefing. The lead soldier, blue pauldron marking him as captain, lowered his DC-15A cautiously. Stand down. Identify yourself, soldier. Castle, Frank Castle. No rank, no unit, just his name because that's all he had left. Castle, the captain's voice held curiosity. Never heard of that designation. Which battalion? None of yours. Frank kept his stance neutral but ready. Where am I? Christophsis, Outer Rim. You're in the middle of a Republic operation against Separatist forces. The captain stepped closer, helmet tilting as if examining Frank. That's civilian gear under the combat vest. No armor, no helmet, no comlink. How'd you get here? Frank met the helmet's emotionless visor. Long story, short version, I'm not supposed to be here. One of the clone troopers shifted nervously. Captain Rex, sir, this doesn't feel right. Command didn't mention reinforcements. He could be a Separatist spy. Rex, the name triggered more fragmented knowledge. Elite clone captain, 501st Legion, served under Skywalker. Frank's head throbbed. The dimensional rift was still affecting him, feeding him context he had no right to possess. Separatist spies don't usually kill droids with their bare hands, Rex observed. His helmet turned toward the destroyed battle droids. That was solid tactical work, efficient. You've seen combat before. More than I can count. Frank lowered the blaster completely, reading the situation. These soldiers weren't enemies yet. I need intel. What war is this? Who's fighting who? Rex's helmet tilted. You serious? The Clone Wars, Republic versus Separatist Alliance. Where have you been, Castle? Different universe. Frank said it flat, testing the reaction. The clones exchanged glances. One laughed nervously. Good one, sir. But Rex didn't laugh. His helmet studied Frank with unsettling intensity. General Skywalker's going to want to meet you. Before Frank could respond, the air itself shifted. A presence approached, not physical, but Frank felt it like pressure against his skull. Heat and intensity and something fundamentally other. A robed figure emerged from the smoke of battle. Young, sandy-haired, a cylindrical weapon hanging from his belt that Frank's fragmented knowledge identified as a lightsaber. Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Knight, stopped 3 meters away. His eyes narrowed, confusion flickering across his features. Rex, what is? He froze mid-sentence, staring at Frank. What are you? Human, last I checked. Frank met the Jedi's gaze without flinching. No, Anakin's hand drifted toward his lightsaber, not threatening but defensive. You're nothing, a void. I can't sense you in the Force at all. It's like you don't exist. The clones shifted uneasily. Frank understood the implications. In a galaxy where mystical energy connected all life, he was invisible, a ghost. That could be an advantage. I exist, Frank said. Just not from here. Anakin's eyes sharpened. Explain now. Frank made a decision. These soldiers were fighting a war they didn't understand, led by mystical warriors who treated them like expendable resources. He'd seen it before. Afghanistan, Iraq, every conflict where politicians sent soldiers to die for lies. But he needed information, needed to understand this galaxy before making enemies. Dimensional rift. I was pursuing targets in my world, got pulled through to yours. That's all I know. Frank gestured at the battle raging below. Now I'm stuck in the middle of your war. So before I decide which side deserves a bullet, I need answers. What's this really about? Anakin's hand remained on his lightsaber. The Republic defends freedom against Separatist tyranny. Skip the propaganda, Frank's voice cut cold. I've heard every version of that speech. Who's dying, who's profiting, who started this? For a moment, Anakin looked thrown. Rex shifted his weight imperceptibly, but Frank caught it. The captain had questions too. The Separatists want independence, Anakin said carefully. The Republic wants to preserve unity. The Jedi serve the Republic to maintain peace. Peace through war. Original. Frank looked at the clone troopers. Identical faces behind identical helmets, bred for combat, disposable soldiers in someone else's conflict. These men know what they're fighting for. We serve the Republic, Rex said, but something in his tone suggested doubt. An explosion rocked the district. Separatist artillery hammered Republic positions. Civilians fled through the crossfire, species Frank didn't recognize, families clutching children while plasma fire turned their city into a war zone. Frank's jaw tightened. Whatever politics divided this galaxy, innocents were dying. That was a language he understood. "Take me to your command," Frank said. "I'll fight, but I choose my own targets." Anakin studied him, suspicion and curiosity warring in his expression. "The Council will want to question you. A man who doesn't exist in the Force, appearing during the Clone Wars. That's not coincidence." Never believed in coincidence. Frank checked the charge on his stolen blaster. Just bad luck and worse timing. Rex gestured toward a Republic gunship settling onto a nearby landing platform. "General, Separatist forces are regrouping. We should extract to the command ship." Anakin nodded slowly, not taking his eyes off Frank. "Agreed. Castle, you're coming with us. But understand, you make one wrong move and the Force won't save you, because you don't have it." Frank met the Jedi's gaze with the flat stare of a man who died inside long ago. "Never needed saving before. Don't plan to start now." As they boarded the gunship, Frank Castle looked down at the war-torn city of Christophsis, at the clone troopers fighting and dying in perfect formation, at the Jedi general who led them with powers beyond human comprehension. This galaxy didn't know it yet, but it had just inherited something more dangerous than any Sith, any droid army, any political conspiracy. It had inherited a man with nothing left to lose and everything to punish. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Republic Star Destroyer loomed ahead, and Frank Castle prepared to learn exactly what kind of war he'd stumbled into, and who deserved to answer for it. The Republic Star Destroyer Resolute hung in orbit above Christophsis like a dagger pointed at the planet's heart. Frank had seen carriers, destroyers, even nuclear submarines during his Force recon days, but nothing prepared him for the sheer scale of a Venator-class warship. Over a kilometer of Durasteel and Turbolaser batteries, crew complement of 7,000, carrier capacity for hundreds of starfighters. The fragmented knowledge bleeding through his mind provided specifications he shouldn't know, tactical data that felt like remembering instead of learning. The dimensional rift had changed him. Not powers. Frank Castle would never move objects with his mind or shoot lightning from his fingers, but understanding. A soldier's instinct for terrain applied to an entire galaxy. He walked through the hangar bay flanked by Rex and 3 clone troopers, boots echoing on polished deck plating. Starfighters, V-19 Torrents and ARC-170s, lined the walls in precise formation. Clone pilots performed maintenance checks with mechanical efficiency, every face identical beneath their helmets, every movement synchronized like parts of a single organism. Bred for war, created to die. Frank had seen child soldiers in conflict zones, teenagers conscripted and brainwashed. But this was different. These men were born fully grown, programmed with combat knowledge, designed as disposable military assets. The Republic called it an army. Frank called it slavery with extra steps. "Through here." Rex gestured toward a blast door marked with Aurebesh script, "Command briefing. The General and Commander Tano are waiting." The door hissed open. The briefing room was sparse, tactical holoprojector dominating the center, Republic insignia on the walls, viewport showing Christophsis' scarred surface. Anakin Skywalker stood beside the holoprojector, arms crossed. Next to him, a teenage Togruta female in Jedi robes studied Frank with bright blue eyes. Ahsoka Tano, Anakin's Padawan learner. More fragmented knowledge surfacing unbidden. And in the corner, observing with ancient patience, a hologram flickered to life. Small, green-skinned, pointed ears, impossibly old eyes, Jedi Grand Master Yoda. "Castle," Anakin's tone was controlled but tension coiled beneath. You've been aboard my ship for 2 hours. Medbay scan shows you're baseline human, no cybernetics, no enhancements, no biological anomalies. But you still don't exist in the Force. Care to explain that? Frank met his gaze. Already did, dimensional rift, not from this galaxy. Right, Ahsoka stepped forward, curiosity overriding caution. So in your galaxy there's no Force, no Jedi. No mystical energy field, no psychics, just people, technology, and a lot of violence. Frank turned to the holoprojector. Show me the tactical situation. If I'm stuck here, I need to understand the operational theater. Anakin exchanged a glance with Ahsoka, then activated the display. The galaxy materialized in blue light, Republic territory, Separatist holdings, neutral systems, contested war zones. Thousands of worlds, millions of battles, billions of casualties. The Clone Wars weren't a war, they were galactic genocide in slow motion. Separatist alliance formed 3 years ago, Anakin explained. Corporate interests, disenfranchised systems, all rallied by Count Dooku. They want independence from the Republic. We're trying to hold the galaxy together. Frank studied the map. Who profits from the fighting? The question hung in the air. Ahsoka frowned. Profits? This is about freedom versus tyranny. Every war is about profit. Frank pointed at Separatist territories. Banking clan, trade federation, corporate alliance. These aren't freedom fighters. They're business interests using military force to leverage political power. And the Republic, he gestured at the clone production facilities marked on Camino. You're buying soldiers by the million. Someone's getting rich. Yoda's hologram leaned forward on his Geimer stick. Observant, this one is. Questions the right ones, he does. Master Yoda has concerns about the war's direction, Anakin admitted reluctantly. But the Jedi serve the Republic. We don't question Senate authority. Why not? Frank's tone was flat. Your general's leading men to die. If you're not asking why, you're just following orders. I've seen where that leads. Anakin's jaw tightened. The Jedi maintain peace. By fighting a war. Frank turned from the holoprojector. Let me tell you what I see. 2 massive armies perfectly matched, bleeding each other across 1,000 worlds. No clear victory for either side, just endless attrition. That's not war, that's a controlled burn. Someone's managing this conflict, keeping it going, profiting from both sides. The room went silent. Ahsoka looked shocked. Rex, standing guard by the door, shifted almost imperceptibly, agreement in that tiny movement. Master Yoda's eyes closed. Clouded the future is, disturbed the Force has become, but see this clearly we cannot. Because you're using the Force to look, Frank said, and whoever's running this is hiding in plain sight, using your blind spots against you. He met Yoda's holographic gaze. I don't have the Force. Can't be manipulated by it, can't be sensed through it. Maybe that's why I see what you can't. Anakin's hand drifted toward his lightsaber. That's a dangerous accusation. You're suggesting the Republic itself is compromised. I'm suggesting someone's playing both sides. Frank pulled up tactical data on the holoprojector, casualty reports, supply chain manifests, fleet movements. The fragmented knowledge in his mind let him navigate the systems instinctively. Look at this. Separatist droid factories supplied by Techno Union, headquartered on Coruscant, Republic capital. Banking clan finances Separatist military, also has offices in the Senate district. Arms manufacturers selling to both armies. Ahsoka leaned over the display, her montral head-tails twitching. That can't be legal. It's war profiteering. Frank pulled up another file. Slaves being trafficked through war zones, Zygerian operations exploiting refugees. His knuckles whitened. And this is what happens when no one's watching the criminals because everyone's focused on the battle lines. Rex stepped forward. Sir, I've seen those trafficking reports. Zygerian slavers have been hitting refugee convoys in the Cadavo system. Command classified it as low priority compared to military objectives. Low priority, Frank's voice went cold. How many civilians? Estimated 12,000 captured in the last month alone, Rex said quietly. Mostly families fleeing separatist occupation zones. Frank turned to Anakin, and the Jedi response. Anakin's expression hardened. We can't be everywhere. The separatists are the primary threat. 12,000 people in chains. Frank's tone could have cut Durasteel. While you chase battle droids, tell me. General, what exactly are you fighting for? The room temperature seemed to drop. Ahsoka put a hand on Anakin's arm, sensing his anger rising. But the young Jedi Master held himself in check, breathing slowly. You don't understand, Anakin said through clenched teeth. The Jedi serve the Republic. We can't just abandon our duty because... Duty to who? Frank interrupted. The politicians sending clone troopers to die, the Senate that lets slavers operate in Republic space, or the people actually suffering while you play soldier. Yoda's hologram rippled. Strong words these are, but truth in them I sense. Lost our way, perhaps the Jedi have. Anakin looked stunned. Master Yoda, you can't seriously. Question everything we must. Yoda's ears drooped. This war unnatural it feels. Victory always out of reach. Always another battle, another world, another million lives. But see the pattern we could not. Frank accessed another file, recent battle reports from Umbara. His jaw tightened as he read casualty figures. Tell me about General Pong Krell. The temperature dropped further. Rex's hands clenched into fists behind his back. Krell commands forces on Umbara, Anakin said carefully. He's aggressive, high casualties but effective results. Effective? Frank pulled up Krell's tactical records. He sent 2 clone battalions into a frontal assault against fortified positions without air support, 60% casualties. Then he ordered night operations in hostile terrain using outdated intelligence, another 40% losses. Frank looked at Rex. Captain, you served under Krell. What's your assessment? Rex's voice was tight, controlled. Permission to speak freely, sir. Granted. General Krell treats clones like ammunition, expendable assets to achieve objectives. Rex paused, struggling with military protocol versus truth. He's gotten more of my brothers killed than any separatist general. Frank nodded slowly. A Jedi, leading Republic forces, killing his own men through negligence or worse. Krell walks a dangerous path, Yoda acknowledged. But evidence of true betrayal we lack. Arrogant and callous, yes, traitor, uncertain. Then someone should investigate. Frank met Anakin's gaze. Or do the Jedi not police their own? Ahsoka spoke up, voice quiet but firm. We could go to Umbara, check on Krell's operations under the guise of strategic coordination. Anakin shook his head. The Council assigned Krell to Umbara for a reason. We can't just interfere with another Jedi's command. Even if he's murdering your soldiers, Frank gestured at Rex. These men are following orders, trusting Jedi leadership. If that trust is being abused... I know, Anakin's shout echoed in the briefing room. The lights flickered. Control reasserted itself a moment later, but Frank had seen the crack, raw emotion, barely contained power. I know the clones are dying. I know this war is wrong, but what choice do we have? The Separatists will enslave the galaxy if we don't fight. Maybe, Frank's tone softened fractionally, or maybe that's what someone wants you to believe. Keep you fighting, keep you from asking questions, keep you from seeing who benefits. Silence settled heavy. The holoprojector displayed the galaxy at war, thousands of worlds burning while invisible hands profited from the flames. Finally Yoda spoke. A test, perhaps. Cadavo system the Zygerian slavers operate. A mission I propose. Castle Captain Rex, Commander Tano investigate. Free the captives. See how this war profiteering works up close. Anakin looked shocked. Master, you're authorizing a mission based on the word of someone who appeared out of nowhere, who we can't even sense in the Force. Trust the Force we do, Yoda said, but trust our eyes also we must. This war, questioning it I am, answers we need, and this one, his ancient gaze fixed on Frank. See what we cannot, perhaps he can, dangerous that makes him, valuable also. Frank studied the Jedi Grand Master. Ancient, powerful, but something in those eyes suggested doubt, cracks in certainty formed over centuries. I'll go, but I operate my way. I find slavers, they don't get arrested. They get eliminated. The Jedi Code forbids, Ahsoka began. I'm not a Jedi. Frank checked the charge on his appropriated blaster. I'm a soldier who punishes evil. You want the slaves freed, I'll free them. But the people responsible won't stand trial. They'll stand in front of my weapon. Anakin's eyes narrowed. I can't authorize that. The Republic has laws. The Republic has laws that let 12,000 people get enslaved. Frank's tone was ice. So I'll follow my law. The guilty get punished. The innocent get protected. Everything else is politics. Rex stepped forward. Sir, I volunteer to accompany Castle and Commander Tano. The 501st has lost brothers to Zygerian raids. We'd like closure. Translation: permission to kill slavers. Frank recognized the tone, soldiers who'd seen too many atrocities, bound by rules of engagement that protected the enemy. He'd been that soldier once before the carousel, before his family's blood turned him into something else. Anakin looked between Frank, Rex, and Ahsoka. Yoda's hologram waited patiently. Finally, the young Jedi Master sighed. Fine, Ahsoka, you're in command. Take a squad of Rex's best. Investigate the Zygerian operation, free any captives you find. He turned to Frank. But you follow Commander Tano's orders. She leads, you follow, understood? Frank met Ahsoka's eyes, bright, idealistic, untested by real darkness. She had no idea what she was about to see. Understood, she gives the orders. He didn't say he'd follow them. As the briefing dissolved, Frank downloaded tactical data to a handheld datapad. Cadavo system, Zygerian slave empire, processing facilities, auction houses, labor camps. The fragmented knowledge in his mind filled in details. Zygerians were apex predators, slavers by culture, arrogant and brutal. They'd never encountered anyone like Frank Castle. Rex approached as others filed out. Castle, a word. Frank nodded. The clone captain waited until they were alone, then removed his helmet. The face beneath was young, technically only a few years old, aged to maturity through Kaminoan growth acceleration. But the eyes were old. Combat aged you fast. You're not wrong, Rex said quietly. About the war, about Krell, about all of it. His jaw tightened. My brothers are dying for a republic that treats us like equipment. We're bred, trained, and shipped to battle zones. No choice, no freedom, just orders. And when we die, he laughed bitterly, they grow replacements. Frank understood. You're soldiers, you deserve better. We're property, Rex's voice was flat. Jedi like General Skywalker and Commander Tano, they treat us like people, but most, we're tools, weapons. He met Frank's gaze. You said you punish evil. Well, I've seen evil, Castle. And sometimes it wears Jedi robes and gives orders that kill my brothers for strategic objectives. Then let's do something about it. Frank extended a hand. Rex gripped it, warrior's handshake, respect between soldiers. Cadavo first, save those people, then, he paused. Then maybe we figure out who's really running this war and make them answer for it. Frank nodded once. Across the galaxy, slavers were counting profits from human misery. They had no idea that something was coming for them, something the Force couldn't see, couldn't predict, couldn't stop. A man with nothing left but punishment. The consular-class Republic frigate dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cadavo system, with the grace of a falling brick. Frank braced against the bulkhead as artificial gravity compensated, his appropriated DC-15A blaster rifle secured across his chest. 6 days aboard ship, 6 days studying galactic warfare, 6 days preparing for an operation in a star system he'd never heard of until last week. The fragmented knowledge had settled into something almost useful, not memories, but instincts. How to read Aurebesh script, basic understanding of hyperspace navigation, recognition of common alien species. The dimensional rift hadn't just deposited him in this galaxy, it had given him the minimum tools to survive it. Not that Frank planned on just surviving. Approaching Cadavo orbit, the clone pilot announced through the intercom. Separatist blockade is minimal, 2 Providence-class destroyers and a fighter screen. They're not even hailing us. Ahsoka Tano stood at the viewport, her blue and white Padawan robes pristine, lightsabers hanging ready at her belt. She'd spent the voyage meditating, training, preparing. Frank had spent it field-stripping weapons, memorizing Zygerian behavioral patterns and planning contingencies. Different approaches to the same mission. The Separatists allow Zygerian operations because it destabilizes Republic territories, Ahsoka said, not turning from the viewport. Refugees fleeing war zones make easy targets. The slavers pay the Separatists a percentage, and everyone profits except the victims. War economy. Frank checked his blaster's charge for the 3rd time. Same story, different galaxy. Rex entered from the troop bay, helmet under his arm, accompanied by 5 clone troopers in modified armor, 5s, Echo, Jesse, Kix, and Hardcase. The 501st best, according to Rex. Each had customized their armor with personal touches, kill markings, unit insignias, names stenciled in Aurebesh. Small rebellions against forced uniformity. "We're ready, Commander," Rex reported. "Insertion team equipped for urban combat and extraction. Kix is standing by with medical gear for the captives." "Good." Ahsoka finally turned from the viewport. At 16, she carried herself with the confidence of Jedi training, but Frank saw the uncertainty beneath. This wasn't a military target or droid army. This was a rescue operation in hostile territory controlled by slavers who'd weaponized sentient beings as merchandise. "Our intelligence indicates the main processing facility is here." She activated a holoprojector showing Cadavo's capital city, Zygeria Prime. Underground levels, heavy security, estimated 200 guards. Plus whatever Separatist support they've got on standby, 5s added. The ARC trooper had a reputation for creative tactics and insubordination, traits Frank appreciated. Intel could be outdated. We might be walking into a battalion. Then we adjust. Frank studied the hologram. The facility was a fortress, reinforced durasteel, energy shields, multiple choke points. Frontal assault would be suicide. What's the perimeter security? Ahsoka manipulated the display. Automated defense turrets, patrol droids, guard rotations every 4 hours. The Zygerians use shock collars on the captives. Any attempt to escape triggers paralysis and alerts security. Frank's jaw tightened. Shock collars like dogs. Can we disable them remotely? Negative, Echo said. The techno-specialist clone shook his head. The collars use encrypted Zygerian tech. We'd need direct access to their control system. Then that's our first objective. Frank pointed at the holoprojector. We infiltrate, access their security hub, disable the collars. Then we extract the captives while the guards are dealing with suddenly free prisoners. Rex nodded approvingly. Chaos as cover, I like it. Ahsoka frowned. That plan requires us to get inside undetected. The Zygerians will recognize Republic infiltrators immediately. Which is why we don't go in as Republic. Frank gestured at the viewport where Cadavo's brown-orange atmosphere filled the view. This is a slave market. They're expecting buyers, so we give them buyers. Understanding dawned on Ahsoka's face. A false identity insertion. We pose as potential clients, gain access to the facility during an inspection. Then kill everyone inside and burn the place to the ground. Frank's tone was matter-of-fact. These aren't soldiers following orders. They're slavers who profit from suffering. No trials, no prison, just elimination. The temperature in the room shifted. Ahsoka's hand drifted toward her lightsaber, not threatening but unconscious. The Jedi Code forbids killing unarmed prisoners. They're not prisoners, they're targets. Frank met her gaze without flinching. Commander, you're in charge of this mission. I'll follow your tactical orders, but understand something. I've spent years hunting people who hurt innocents. Traffickers, murderers, rapists, slavers. I don't arrest them, I end them. If that conflicts with your code, tell me now. Silence stretched. The clone troopers exchanged glances. Rex remained perfectly still, face unreadable, but Frank caught the microscopic nod. Finally, Ahsoka spoke carefully. The Jedi seek to preserve life whenever possible, but, she paused, struggling with doctrine versus reality. Master Yoda sent you on this mission for a reason, maybe because the code doesn't always account for people like the Zygerians. Her blue eyes hardened. We free the captives. Anyone who tries to stop us faces the consequences, but we offer surrender, give them a chance. Fair enough. Frank didn't mention that in his experience, slavers never surrendered. They fought, ran, or begged, and none of those options saved them. The ship shuddered as they entered Kadavo's atmosphere. Through the viewport, Zygeria Prime emerged from cloud cover, a sprawling city of rust-colored architecture, slave markets visible even from orbit as massive auction houses and processing centers. Somewhere down there, 12,000 Republic citizens were being cataloged, appraised, and sold like livestock. Frank felt the familiar coldness settle over him, the calm before violence, the certainty that what he was about to do was necessary, righteous, and completely unforgivable by civilized standards. He'd made peace with being a monster long ago. Monsters like him existed to hunt other monsters, the ones who wore respectable faces while committing atrocities. Landing in 5, the pilot announced. Touching down at Civilian Port 7, IFF transponder broadcasting as independent trader vessel. Good luck, Commander. Ahsoka straightened her robes, composing herself into the role. Remember, we're buyers from the Outer Rim, interested in acquiring labor for mining operations. Echo, you'll pose as my financial advisor. Rex and Castle are my security detail. The others stay with the ship as backup. Echo produced forged identification credentials. Ahsoka was now Ash Lamari's, wealthy entrepreneur from Ryloth. Frank was Marcus Kane, mercenary bodyguard. The identities were paper-thin, but slavers weren't known for thorough background checks when credits were involved. The frigate settled onto the landing pad with a hydraulic hiss. Kadavo's air was thick, humid, smelling of industrial processing, and something else, fear, suffering, the psychic residue of mass trauma. Frank had smelled it before in trafficking warehouses and cartel compounds. The smell of hell operating in plain sight. They disembarked into controlled chaos. Zygeria Prime's civilian port teemed with activity, merchants, bounty hunters, traders, and worse. Species Frank didn't recognize mingled with familiar humanoids. At the far end, a slave caravan shuffled past in chains, shock collars glowing blue around their throats. Guards in Zygerian armor, ornate, ceremonial, designed to intimidate, prodded stragglers with electro-whips. Ahsoka's hand clenched on her concealed lightsaber. Frank put a hand on her shoulder. Easy, we're buyers, remember. Show disgust and we're compromised. She took a slow breath, releasing tension through Jedi techniques. I know, it's just. Her voice dropped to a whisper. These are people, families, and we're pretending to want to purchase them. No, Frank's tone was iron. We're pretending to be buyers so we can free them. Don't lose sight of the mission. Rex, playing the stoic bodyguard, scanned the crowds with professional paranoia. His armor was unmarked, Republic insignias removed, giving him the anonymous appearance of a hired gun. Eyes front, Zygerian security patrol approaching. 3 guards moved through the crowd with casual arrogance. The lead Zygerian was tall, feline features twisted into permanent superiority, ceremonial armor gleaming. He stopped in front of Ahsoka, looking her up and down with predatory assessment. "Welcome to Kadavo, Offworlder." His basic was accented, contemptuous. "State your business." Ahsoka's voice was cool, imperious. "I'm here to inspect merchandise for potential acquisition. I was told your facility processes the highest quality stock." The guard's expression shifted to greedy interest. "The finest in the galaxy, refugees from war zones already broken and compliant, perfect for labor operations." He gestured toward the sprawling facility in the distance, a massive compound surrounded by energy fences. "If you have credits, we have product." Frank wanted to put a blaster bolt between the Zygerian's eyes. Instead, he maintained his bodyguard posture, scanning for threats, hand resting casually on his DC-15. "Excellent." Ahsoka produced a credit chit, Republic funds laundered through black market channels. "I'd like to tour your processing center. My advisor will handle the financial arrangements." Echo stepped forward, all business. "We're looking at bulk acquisition, minimum 500 units, but we need to verify quality before committing funds." The Zygerian's eyes widened fractionally. 500 slaves meant massive commission. Of course, right this way. I'll escort you personally to our premium holding area." They followed him through winding streets that grew progressively darker, more desperate. Shops sold slave restraints, shock collars, obedience drugs. Street corners featured display cages where samples stood on exhibition, eyes hollow, spirits broken. Children, elderly, families torn apart and reassembled as inventory. Frank's trigger finger itched. Ahsoka's breathing was controlled but strained. Rex's jaw was locked so tight it might shatter. The processing facility loomed ahead, 3 stories of reinforced architecture, guard towers at corners, energy shields humming with lethal charge. The entrance was a massive blast door marked with Oribesh. "Zygerian Royal Processing Center, authorized personnel only." Their escort palmed a security scanner. The door groaned open, revealing a reception area where more guards lounged, weapons within easy reach. Beyond, Frank heard sounds that made his blood freeze: weeping, pleading, the crack of electro-whips, screams cut short by shock collar activation. The Zygerian led them deeper. "Our operation is quite efficient. We process roughly 3,000 units per month, sorted by species, age, and physical capability. Premium stock is kept in the sublevels, climate-controlled medical monitoring, optimal conditioning protocols." "Conditioning," Ahsoka's voice was tight. "Breaking the spirit without damaging the body." The guard spoke like discussing machinery maintenance. "Shock therapy, sensory deprivation, chemical compliance enhancers. By the time they reach auction, most units are fully compliant. Resistance is educated out of them." Frank caught Rex's gaze. The clone captain's eyes promised murder. They descended via turbolift into the facility's heart. 3 sublevels down, the doors opened to reveal rows of holding cells, hundreds of them, each containing Republic citizens in various states of despair. Human, Twi'lek, Rhodian, species Frank didn't recognize, all wearing shock collars, all broken. In one cell, a human woman cradled a child who couldn't have been older than 5. In another, an elderly man stared at nothing, mind gone. Across the corridor, teenagers huddled together, fresh bruises visible on exposed skin. 12,000, the report said. Frank was looking at maybe 300 in this section alone. The scope of the operation was staggering. The Zygerian gestured proudly. "As you can see, we maintain excellent conditions. Regular feeding schedules, basic medical care, minimal mortality rates. These units represent premium investment opportunities." Frank moved. One moment he was the silent bodyguard. The next, his blaster was pressed against the Zygerian's skull. "Where's your security control center?" The guard's eyes went wide. What? Frank pulled the trigger. The Zygerian crumpled brain matter painting the wall. Alarms shrieked instantly, motion sensors, life sign termination alerts, security protocols activating. Throughout the facility, guards scrambled to stations. Ahsoka ignited both lightsabers, green and yellow-green blades humming to life. So much for subtle infiltration. Subtle wouldn't have worked. Frank was already moving, dropping two guards emerging from a side corridor with precise headshots. Echo, find that control center. Rex, cover our 6. Commander, try to keep up. The facility exploded into chaos. Guards poured from barracks, blasters firing wildly. Frank moved through them like death itself, every shot placed, every movement economical, no wasted motion. Rex fought beside him, clone precision meeting Punisher ruthlessness. Between them, the Zygerians didn't stand a chance. Ahsoka deflected blaster bolts with her sabers, then surged forward in a blur of Jedi speed. She carved through guards with controlled ferocity, each strike disabling rather than killing. Her training held. Even in fury, even facing slavers, she sought to incapacitate. Frank had no such limitations. He executed every guard who raised a weapon, put rounds through anyone wearing Zygerian armor, showed zero mercy to people who'd shown none to their victims. Control center located. Echo's voice crackled over comlink. 3rd sublevel, eastern wing, heavy security, biometric locks. On it, Ahsoka force-leaped over a security barricade, lightsabers whirling. Frank followed at ground level, suppressing guards with precision fire. They fought through 3 corridors, leaving carnage in their wake. The control center door was reinforced durasteel. Ahsoka's sabers made quick work of it, melting through locks in a shower of sparks. Inside, a Zygerian technician scrambled for a panic button. Frank shot him through the shoulder, non-lethal but incapacitating. Echo rushed to the control console. Got it. Shock collar network is encrypted, but his fingers flew across the interface. There, deactivating now. Throughout the facility, thousands of shock collars powered down simultaneously. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the sound of hope, prisoners realizing they were no longer restrained, no longer helpless. And the sound of rage, 12,000 captives remembering what had been done to them. The uprising was instant and brutal. Freed prisoners swarmed guards, overwhelming them through sheer numbers. Months of torture and degradation transformed into righteous fury. The Zygerians screamed, begged, offered surrender. The captives showed them exactly as much mercy as they'd shown their victims. Ahsoka looked away, disturbed by the violence but unwilling to stop it. This was justice, raw, ugly, but earned. Frank watched impassively. Rex, secure the upper levels, make sure no one escapes. Echo, download their client lists, financial records, everything. These slavers had buyers. We're going to find them. Copy that. Rex moved out all business. Frank turned to the wounded technician. Your managers, where are they? The Zygerian clutched his shoulder, eyes wide with fear and pain. Please, I'm just an operator, I don't. Frank's blaster pressed against his knee. Wrong answer, try again. Penthouse level, top floor. They're evacuating via private hangar. The technician babbled coordinates, access codes, everything. Frank stood, leaving him alive. For now. Commander, I'm going topside. These people need medical attention and safe extraction. That's your area. Ahsoka tore her gaze from the liberated prisoners. What are you going to do? Make sure the people who ran this place don't get to run another. Frank checked his blaster charge. Half depleted, plenty left. They made a business out of human suffering. I'm about to close that business permanently. He moved toward the turbolift before Ahsoka could object. The facility shook as freed captives tore it apart from within, decades of slaver infrastructure crumbling under the weight of justified vengeance. Frank Castle rode the turbolift up through 3 levels of chaos, emerging into a penthouse decorated with obscene wealth, artwork purchased with slave credits, furniture upholstered in exotic leather, viewports showing Cadavo's industrial sprawl. At the far end, a private hangar door stood open. 3 Zygerians in expensive robes rushed toward a waiting shuttle, the facility's owners, management, architects of misery. They saw Frank and froze. "You," the lead Zygerian, older, scarred, wearing ceremonial chains made from shock collar components, snarled. "Do you have any idea what you've done? That merchandise represented millions of credits." Frank raised his blaster. "They were people, not merchandise." "Spare me the moral outrage." The Zygerian drew a ornate blaster pistol, more ceremonial than functional. "This is business, supply and demand. If we didn't do it, someone else would." Frank shot him in the chest. The slaver fell, shock and betrayal frozen on his face. The other 2 scrambled for weapons. Frank killed them both before they cleared holsters. 3 shots, 3 bodies, 3 fewer monsters in the galaxy. He stood over the lead Zygerian's corpse, looking at the shock collar chain around the dead slaver's neck. A trophy, a symbol of power over the helpless. Frank ripped it free and dropped it on the body. "You were right about one thing. Someone else might do it, so I'll be waiting for them too." He turned and walked back toward the turbolift, leaving the penthouse and its occupants to burn. Behind him, the shuttle sat abandoned, escape route cut off permanently. By the time Frank reached the sublevel holding areas, Republic forces had arrived. Ahsoka had signaled reinforcements, and medical frigates were evacuating freed captives. Kix and the other medics worked frantically, treating malnutrition, injuries, psychological trauma. Rex found Frank in the corridor, helmet off, expression grim. "Facilities secure. All hostile personnel eliminated or captured. We found evidence of Separatist collaboration, communication logs, payment records. The Seppas were taking a 30% cut. And the captives? 3,217 freed from this facility alone. There are 6 more across Cadavo." Rex's jaw tightened. "Commander Tana wants to hit them all. She's requesting reinforcements from General Skywalker." Frank nodded. "Good. Burn every slave market on this planet to ash." Ahsoka approached, lightsabers deactivated, face troubled. "The Zygerian managers are dead. Their guards are dead. We freed the captives, but—" She struggled for words. "This wasn't a clean operation. It was an execution." "Yes," Frank didn't apologize. "Those people were guilty. They got what they deserved." "The Jedi Code." "Isn't my code." Frank's tone softened fractionally. "Commander, you fought well. You saved thousands of lives. Don't let doctrine steal that victory. What we did here was necessary." She met his gaze, young eyes searching for certainty in a galaxy that offered none. "Master Yoda said you see what we can't. I think I'm starting to understand. The Jedi fight for peace, but sometimes peace requires—" She couldn't finish the thought. "Violence," Frank completed it. "Controlled, targeted, righteous violence against people who have earned it. That's not the Jedi way. It's mine. And if you need someone to carry that weight so you don't have to, I'm here." Ahsoka considered this. Finally, she nodded. "We'll take down the other facilities together, but Frank," she used his first name, dropping ranks and roles, "don't lose yourself in this. Revenge can consume you." Frank thought of his family, of the carousel, of the moment he stopped being a man and became a weapon. "Already lost, Commander, but what's left? That's still worth something." He walked past her toward the medical bay, where freed captives were receiving treatment. A young girl, maybe 7, Twi'lek, shock collar burns on her throat, looked up at him with enormous eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Frank knelt, meeting her gaze. "You're safe now. The people who hurt you are gone. They can't hurt anyone else." She nodded, trusting him with the faith children had before the galaxy taught them otherwise. Frank stood and moved on, leaving hope in his wake even as he carried death in his hands. Above Cadavo, more Republic ships dropped from hyperspace. The liberation had begun. And Frank Castle, a man from another universe who didn't exist in the Force, had just declared war on every slaver, profiteer, and war criminal in the galaxy. They would learn to fear the void where he should have been. The warehouse district of Coruscant's underworld level 1313 smelled like every black market Frank had ever raided: desperation, greed, and the acrid tang of illegal weapons. 6 weeks since Cadavo. 6 slave facilities burned to ash across 3 systems. 12,000 freed captives returned to Republic space, and a growing list of targets that led Frank deeper into the Clone Wars' rotting foundation. He crouched on a support beam 50 meters above the warehouse floor, DC-15X sniper configuration in his hands, watching the transaction unfold below. Arms dealers from the Techno Union negotiated with a Republic admiral, Edlon Wvet, commander of the 6th Fleet, decorated officer, war hero, also selling fleet deployment schedules to Separatist intelligence in exchange for credits funneled through corporate intermediaries. Frank had been tracking Wvet for 3 weeks, building the case brick by brick. Bank records, encrypted communications, surveillance footage. The fragmented knowledge in his mind had expanded, sharpened. He could navigate Coruscant's data networks, decrypt military-grade communications, move through the galaxy's capital like a ghost. The dimensional rift's gift kept giving. Frank didn't question it anymore, just used it. Below, Admiral Wvet reviewed a datapad. The 6th Fleet will be conducting patrols in the Quelii sector for the next rotation. Standard search pattern, minimal destroyer support. Your employers will have a 6-hour window to move their shipments through the Perlemian trade route without interdiction. The Techno Union representative, a Skakon in an environmental suit, transmitted credits via encrypted account. Pleasure conducting business, Admiral. The foreman appreciates partners who understand economic realities transcend political boundaries. Translation: war profiteers didn't care which side won as long as both sides kept buying. Frank's finger rested on the trigger. One shot sent her mass, Wvet dead before he hit the ground. Easy, clean, justice served. But Wvet wasn't alone. 6 bodyguards in unmarked armor, professional mercenaries, probably ex-Republic commandos gone private. Killing Wvet would trigger a firefight, and Frank needed the Admiral alive long enough to extract information. The corruption went deeper than one officer. There was a network, and Frank intended to burn every node. His comlink crackled softly. "Castle, I've got visual on 3 additional contacts entering from the east entrance." Ahsoka's voice was transmitted from her position across the warehouse. "Armed, military bearing, could be more security or weight. Those are clone troopers, unmarked armor." Frank shifted his scope. 3 clones indeed, armor stripped of Republic insignias, moving with professional caution. Deserters, mercenaries, or something worse. Rex's voice joined the channel. "I recognize that movement pattern. That's advanced recon commando training. Those are ARC troopers." "Working for Wvet," Ahsoka sounded betrayed. "They're supposed to be the best we have." Money talks louder than loyalty for some. Frank tracked the ARCs as they took positions around the warehouse perimeter. "Commander, adjust position. We've got more hostiles than anticipated." 6 weeks of operations together had forged the unlikely team into something effective. Ahsoka brought Jedi abilities and tactical coordination. Rex provided clone military expertise and inside knowledge of Republic procedures. Frank brought 20 years of urban warfare, interrogation techniques, and the willingness to cross lines the Jedi couldn't. They'd become something unofficial, a task force that didn't exist, operating in gaps between Republic military jurisdiction and Jedi authority. Master Yoda knew, offered quiet approval and plausible deniability. Anakin Skywalker suspected but didn't ask questions, too busy fighting the war to micromanage his Padawan. And Frank, he'd found purpose again, The galaxy was vast, but evil was universal. Slavers, profiteers, war criminals, they existed here just like they had in New York, Afghanistan, everywhere Frank had ever operated. Different faces, same crimes. The transaction below concluded. Admiral W. Vet pocketed the datapad, shook hands with the Techno-Union representative, and turned toward the exit. The mercenary bodyguards formed up around him, a professional protective detail. Moving to intercept, Frank transmitted. He slung the sniper rifle, pulled his DC-15A blaster, and dropped from the support beam. 50 meters of freefall, controlled by a grappling cable anchored to his belt. He hit the ground in a combat roll, coming up with the weapon raised. The bodyguards reacted instantly, but Frank was faster. 3 shots, 3 guards down, non-lethal stun settings because he needed intel, not corpses. Ahsoka dropped from the opposite side, lightsabers igniting mid-fall. She landed between W-Vet and his remaining security, emerald blades whirling in defensive kata. Admiral Edlon W-Vet, Ahsoka's voice carried Jedi authority. You're under arrest for treason, conspiracy with enemy forces, and corruption of Republic military assets. W-Vet's face went pale, then calculation replaced fear. Commander Tano, I should have known the Council would send a Jedi. His hand moved toward a holdout blaster. But you're too late. The evidence you think you have won't survive legal scrutiny. I have friends in the Senate. Frank shot the holdout blaster from W-Vet's hand. The Admiral screamed, clutching his scorched fingers. No lawyers, Frank said flatly. No Senate hearings, just you answering questions. W-Vet focused on Frank, recognition flickering. You, the Republic's pet killer, the man who doesn't exist in the Force. He laughed bitterly. You think you can intimidate me? I'm a decorated admiral. You can't prove. Frank shot him in the knee. W-Vet collapsed, howling. Frank, Ahsoka's voice was sharp with shock. We need him for interrogation. Still got one good knee. Frank advanced on the Admiral. And a mouth, that's all I need. The remaining bodyguards opened fire. Rex emerged from concealment, leading a squad of 500 first troopers, Fives, Echo, Jesse, all volunteers for these unofficial operations. They engaged with practiced precision, overwhelming mercenary resistance through superior tactics and clone coordination. The 3 ARC troopers joined the fight, and suddenly the tactical situation shifted. ARCs were elite, trained beyond standard clone capabilities. They moved like water, covering each other, suppressing Republic forces with professional brutality. One ARC focused on Frank, recognizing the greater threat. They exchanged fire across the warehouse floor, blaster bolts painting the darkness in blue and red. Frank moved between cover points, combat instinct honed over decades telling him where shots would come from, where openings existed. The ARC was good. Frank was better. He flanked left, drew the ARC's attention, then rolled right and put 2 stun bolts into the trooper's exposed side. The ARC dropped, convulsing. Ahsoka engaged the other 2 ARCs simultaneously, lightsabers deflecting their coordinated assault. Force-enhanced speed let her match 2 elite soldiers, but barely. One ARC threw a thermal detonator. Ahsoka force-pushed it back, detonation catching both ARCs in the blast radius. When the smoke cleared, the warehouse was silent except for the groaning wounded. Admiral W-Vet dragged himself toward the exit, leaving a blood trail, his shattered knee making escape impossible. Frank walked after him, unhurried. Please, W-Vet gasped. I can give you names, accounts. Other officers are involved. Just medical attention, please. Frank hauled the Admiral up by his collar, slamming him against a cargo container. Start talking. Who else is selling Republic intelligence? W-Vet's eyes darted. I need guarantees, protection. If I inform, they'll kill me. I'll kill you if you don't. Frank's tone promised absolute certainty. Choose fast. There are 12 other flag officers compromised. WVET babbled. The Techno-Union has leverage on them. Financial records, personal scandals, and gambling debts. They're bleeding the Republic dry from the inside while the Separatists benefit. Ahsoka approached, deactivating her lightsabers. 12 admirals. That's nearly a quarter of the Republic's senior naval command. She looked sick. How long has this been happening? Since the war started. WVET slumped against the container. The Techno-Union approached me during the first year, offered to clear my debts in exchange for minor intelligence. Then it escalated. Before I knew it, I was in too deep. Frank recognized the pattern. Corruption through incremental compromise. Hook them with small favors, tighten the noose until they're trapped. Classic intelligence operation. Who's running it? Frank demanded. Who coordinates the Techno-Union's intelligence network? WVET hesitated. Frank raised his blaster. Wat Tambor, the admiral screamed. Foreman Wat Tambor himself oversees the Republic corruption network, but he's just middle management. The real architect. WVET's eyes widened with sudden terror. Oh no, if I tell you he'll. Who? Frank pressed the blaster against WVET's head. Darth. The admiral's head exploded. Not from Frank's blaster, but from inside. A microscopic explosive implanted in his brain stem, remotely detonated. WVET's body collapsed, neural matter splattering the cargo container. Frank stepped back, scanning for threats. Snipers, take cover. But no follow-up shot came. The execution was precise, remotely activated. Someone had been monitoring the conversation, listening through surveillance, and silenced WVET the moment he approached dangerous information. Rex retrieved a small device from WVET's skull fragments. Inhibitor chip. Modified. This isn't standard clone programming. Someone surgically implanted a kill switch in the Admiral's brain. Insurance policy, Frank said grimly. Whoever's running this network doesn't trust their assets. One word about the real conspiracy and he gestured at WVET's corpse. Ahsoka was pale. He was about to say Darth, as in Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord. The warehouse felt suddenly colder. Frank had learned about the Sith during his crash course in galactic history, ancient enemies of the Jedi, thought extinct, masters of the dark side. According to intelligence reports, the Separatist leader Count Dooku was a Sith, but WVET had been about to reveal something else, someone deeper in the conspiracy. We need to analyze this chip, Echo said, carefully bagging the evidence. If there's a network of compromised officers with remote kill switches, we're looking at systematic infiltration at the highest levels. Frank's mind raced through implications. The Clone Wars weren't just manipulated, they were controlled. Both sides dancing to a hidden conductor, and when someone got too close to exposing the truth, they died with a thought. We need to go to the Jedi Council, Ahsoka said. Master Yoda, Master Windu, they need to know the Republic is compromised. With what evidence? Rex held up the blood-soaked chip. A dead admiral's implant. Testimony from a known traitor who's now a corpse. The Senate will bury this. Too many powerful people benefit from the status quo. Frank stared at WVET's body. Another thread was cut before it could unravel the web. Whoever was orchestrating this had surveillance everywhere, countermeasures for every contingency, and the power to execute assets remotely. He'd faced criminal organizations, terrorist cells, even government conspiracies. But this was different. This was galactic-scale manipulation by an enemy that could sense the future through mystical powers, control armies across thousands of worlds, and kill with a thought. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Frank Castle felt outmatched. We regroup, he said finally. Analyze the evidence, identify other compromised officers, and track the Techno-Union's financial networks. If we can't go through official channels, we go around them. Ahsoka looked troubled. That's vigilante justice. The Jedi are peacekeepers, not. The Jedi are losing, Frank interrupted. "This war has been going on for 3 years. Millions dead, no clear victor, both sides bleeding resources. That's not war, that's orchestrated slaughter. And the people running it just killed our primary witness." He turned to face her fully. "Commander, you asked me once if I'd lost myself in revenge. Maybe I did. But right now, this galaxy needs someone willing to get lost. Someone who will hunt this conspiracy no matter where it leads, even if it leads to—" "A Sith Lord," Ahsoka finished quietly. "You think Darth Sidious is manipulating both sides of the war?" "I think someone is, and I think they're powerful enough to make Admiral Wvet's head explode from kilometers away the second he got close to exposing them." Frank checked his blaster charge. "Question is, are you willing to pursue this? Because once we start pulling this thread, we're going to unravel everything. Republic, Senate, maybe the Jedi Order itself." Ahsoka was silent for a long moment. Around them, clone troopers secured the warehouse, collected evidence, tended to wounded. Good soldiers following orders, unaware their entire war was a lie. Finally, she spoke. "Master Yoda sent you on these missions because you see what we can't. Because the Force—" She paused, choosing words carefully. "The dark side clouds everything. We've been fighting blind, trusting in the Force to guide us. But what if the Force itself is being manipulated?" "Then you need someone outside it." Frank understood. "Someone the enemy can't sense, can't predict, can't control through mystical means." "A void in the Force." Ahsoka met his gaze. "That's what you are to us, a blind spot in the Sith's vision." Frank nodded slowly. "Then let's use that. We keep this investigation off the books. No official reports, no council briefings until we have irrefutable proof. We hunt the corruption cell by cell, follow the credits and the bodies until we find whoever's pulling the strings." Rex stepped forward. "The 501st is with you. My brothers deserve to know what they're dying for. If this war is a lie, we expose it." Fives joined him. "We're soldiers, not slaves. We choose to fight, but we also choose to learn the truth." One by one, the clone troopers added their support. Men created to serve, now choosing to rebel in the most dangerous way possible, by asking questions. Ahsoka ignited one lightsaber, emerald blade casting shadows across determined faces. "We continue the investigation. We find the conspiracy's source, and we bring it down, no matter the cost." She looked at Frank. "Even if it means going against everything the Jedi stand for." "Especially then," Frank said. "Because the Jedi standing for peace and justice doesn't mean much if they're being played like puppets." They left the warehouse in the Coruscant underworld, leaving Admiral Wvet's corpse and the wreckage of one small battle. But Frank knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere in this galaxy, a Sith Lord was orchestrating genocide. And Frank Castle, the man who didn't exist in the Force, had just declared war on the darkness itself. The evidence pointed toward connections even he hadn't anticipated. Whispers of a conspiracy centered in the Senate, protected by layers of political immunity and mystical manipulation. Following this trail would lead to confrontations with power beyond anything Frank had faced. But he'd walked into hell before. Every time he put on the skull, every time he loaded a weapon, every time he chose punishment over mercy. This galaxy's hell was bigger. The skull he wore now was invisible, but the mission remained the same. Find the guilty, make them pay, protect the innocent. Even if the guilty wore senatorial robes and commanded the Force itself. Above Coruscant, the galaxy turned in its endless war. Below, in shadows and forgotten levels, a conspiracy trembled, because for the first time it faced an enemy it couldn't see coming. The Senate building's observation deck overlooked Coruscant's endless cityscape. A trillion lights marking lives lived in the shadow of war. Frank stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, watching air traffic weave between kilometers-high skyscrapers. Somewhere in those streams of movement, Separatist agents operated freely. Somewhere in the Senate chambers behind him, traitors voted on war policy while sabotaging it from within. And somewhere, a Sith Lord watched it all burn according to plan. 3 months since Admiral W. Vett's execution. 3 months of following financial trails, intercepting encrypted communications, tracking weapons shipments that supplied both Republic and Separatist forces. The conspiracy was vast. Corporations, senators, military officers, even Jedi who'd been compromised through blackmail or manipulation. The Clone Wars were a machine designed to consume the galaxy, and everyone in power fed it fuel. Everyone except the ones fighting and dying. Frank turned from the viewport as the door hissed open. Ahsoka entered, her Padawan braid gone. She'd cut it 2 weeks ago after the Council questioned her methods, her association with unsanctioned operatives, her growing willingness to bend Jedi doctrine. She hadn't left the Order, not officially, but the distance was growing. "Master Yoda wants to see you," she said. "Private audience, just you." Frank raised an eyebrow. The Grand Master doesn't usually request meetings with people who don't exist in the Force. "He's been protecting our investigation from the Council." Ahsoka's expression was troubled. "Master Windu suspects something. He's been asking questions about our operations, demanding accountability. Master Yoda's been deflecting, but it can't last." "Then we're running out of time." Frank had known this moment would come. The evidence they'd collected pointed towards someone in the Senate itself, someone powerful enough to orchestrate both sides of the war, influential enough to control Jedi assignments, connected enough to access clone programming. The list of suspects was terrifyingly short. And at the top, circled in Frank's investigation files, Supreme Chancellor Sheev Palpatine. Frank followed Ahsoka through secured corridors to a private meditation chamber deep in the Senate's restricted levels. The room was simple, stone floor, minimal furnishings, a single shaft of sunlight from above. And in the center, hovering cross-legged on a meditation pod, Master Yoda. The ancient Jedi's eyes opened as Frank entered. "Come, Frank Castle, sit, talk we must." Frank remained standing. Old habits, never sit with your back to a door, never relax when discussing dangerous topics. "Commander Tano said you wanted to see me." "Yes, alone." Yoda's gaze shifted to Ahsoka, gentle but firm. "Wait outside, young one. Private this conversation must be." Ahsoka hesitated, then bowed and withdrew. The door sealed behind her with a hiss of pressurized atmosphere. Yoda studied Frank with eyes that had witnessed nearly 9 centuries of galactic history. "A disturbance in the Force you are, a void where life should be. At first I was, dangerous, unpredictable, but now," he gestured for Frank to approach. "Understand I begin to, see what we cannot you do. Because blind you are blind to the Force, blind the Force is blind to you." Frank moved closer. "You're saying I'm invisible to whoever's manipulating events." "Not invisible, unpredictable." Yoda's ears drooped. "The dark side clouds everything, shows us paths that may be, visions of futures possible, but you," he pointed a gnarled finger, "no future for you exists in the Force, no past either, a blank space you are, and in that blank space," his eyes gleamed. "Hope perhaps." "Hope for what?" "To see the truth." Yoda descended from his meditation pod, leaning on his Geimer stick. 3 years of war, Frank Castle. 3 years of Jedi dying, clones dying, innocents dying. Always another battle, always another world. Victory promised but never delivered. The Council believes we fight for peace. But peace, he shook his head, further away now than when the war began. Frank knelt, bringing himself eye level with the Grand Master. "You know something about who's running this?" "Suspect I do, prove I cannot." Yoda's voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. "The dark side surrounds the Chancellor, always has, but too subtle for certainty, too careful for accusation, and powerful allies he has in the Senate and the military perhaps." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Even among the Jedi." "Palpatine," Frank said the name like a curse. "You think the Supreme Chancellor is the Sith Lord?" Think Yoda's laugh was bitter. No, I do, but knowing and proving are different things they are. Confront him without evidence and civil war within the Republic we risk. The Senate trusts him, the people love him, the Jedi serve him. His ancient eyes met Frank's. And if wrong we are, if innocent he is and accused falsely, destroy the Jedi Order it would, destroy the Republic. Frank understood the impossible position. In his world, he'd hunted criminals protected by law, by power, by institutions. Sometimes the only way to reach them was to operate outside those institutions. But Yoda was Grand Master of the Jedi Order, bound by doctrine, by responsibility, by the weight of tradition. Frank Castle was bound by nothing except the mission. "What do you need from me?" Frank asked. Yoda regarded him with something like sadness. Evidence. Irrefutable, undeniable proof of Palpatine's true nature. But dangerous this task is. The Chancellor is not merely a politician. If he is Darth Sidious as we do, powerful in the dark side, he is. More powerful than any Jedi living, perhaps. I don't use the Force, can't be manipulated by it. No, but killed by it you can be. Yoda's expression was grave. Force lightning, telekinetic crushing, powers beyond your comprehension. Face Darth Sidious unprepared and die you will, quickly, painfully, uselessly. Frank had faced an overwhelming force before, survived when he shouldn't have through preparation, tactics, and absolute commitment. Then I prepare, learn his patterns, his security, his vulnerabilities. When I move against him, it'll be decisive. Alone you cannot succeed. I don't plan to be alone. Frank thought of Rex, Ahsoka, the clone troopers who'd become more than soldiers. They'd become believers in something beyond orders. We've built a network. People who know the war is wrong, who want truth even if it costs them everything. Yoda nodded slowly. Ahsoka Tano, changed she is. Your influence partly, but also her own growing wisdom. Sees the Council's blindness now, questions what she was taught. He sighed. Lose her to this mission I may, and lose you both to death I fear. We all die eventually, Frank stood. Question is whether we die for something that matters. Ahem. A soldier's philosophy. Yoda tapped his stick against the stone floor. But correct, perhaps. The Force teaches peace, teaches patience, but peace built on lies, patience that allows genocide. His ears flattened. Perhaps the Force itself requires warriors like you, those willing to bring war to those who hide behind peace. The chamber door opened. Not Ahsoka, Rex, armor scorched from recent combat, face grim. Castle Commander. Rex's voice was tight. We've got a situation. The 501st just received emergency deployment orders, immediate transfer to Coruscant's lower levels, full combat loadout. Frank's tactical instincts flared. Deployment orders from who? Chancellor's office. Directly. Rex pulled up a holographic transmission. Palpatine's grandfatherly face appeared, expressing grave concern. There's been an incident in the industrial sector. Separatist saboteurs allegedly discovered. The Chancellor wants clone forces to secure the area before Senate security arrives. It's a trap, Frank said immediately. Palpatine's isolating clone units, getting them away from Jedi oversight. Yoda's eyes widened. Order 66, the contingency protocol. If activated he does turn on their Jedi generals, the clones will, programmed they are from creation. We removed the behavioral chips from our squad, Rex said. But the rest of the 501st, the entire Grand Army, they're still programmed. If the Chancellor activates the protocol. Frank's mind raced through implications. Every clone trooper is programmed to execute Jedi on command. Thousands of Jedi across the galaxy, trusting their clone soldiers. One transmission, one code phrase, and the entire Jedi Order would be slaughtered by their own troops. The perfect purge. Palpatine wouldn't even need to reveal himself as a Sith. Just activate Order 66, let the clones eliminate the Jedi, then consolidate power in the chaos. He's accelerating the timeline, Frank said. We forced his hand by investigating too closely. Now he's moving to eliminate the Jedi before we can expose him. Ahsoka burst through the door. Master, the Council is assembling. Master Windu received intelligence that Chancellor Palpatine might be. She stopped, seeing their faces. You already know. No, we do, Yoda said heavily. Act we must, but carefully if wrong we are. We're not wrong. Frank pulled up the evidence they'd compiled, financial records, intercepted communications, killed chips in compromised officers, everything pointing to a central conspiracy orchestrated from the highest level of Republic government. Palpatine is Darth Sidious. He created the Clone Wars to destroy the Jedi and transform the Republic into an empire. And right now, he's about to activate Order 66. Yoda's shoulders slumped. 900 years of defending peace, and it came to this, trusting a stranger from another universe who existed outside the Force itself. Go, Yoda said finally. Stop the Chancellor, you must, before the protocol activates, before the Jedi fall, but the evidence you need, proof for the Senate, for the galaxy. His ancient eyes burned with desperate intensity. Force him to reveal himself. Make him show his true nature, broadcast it across Coruscant. Only then can the Republic survive the truth. Frank understood. Killing Palpatine wouldn't be enough. They needed exposure, revelation, and undeniable proof of the conspiracy. Otherwise, the Sith Lord would die a martyr, and his empire would rise anyway. I'll need access to the Senate chambers, Frank said, and a way to override Republic broadcast networks. I can slice the holonet, Echo said, appearing in the doorway with Fives and Jesse. The entire squad had assembled, aware that something critical was happening. If we can get to a primary relay station, I can patch into every channel on Coruscant. The Senate has relay access in the Chancellor's emergency bunker, Ahsoka said, designed for galaxy-wide announcements during a crisis, if we can reach it. Then we force Palpatine into the open. Frank checked his weapons, DC-15A blaster, thermal detonators, vibroblade, everything he'd accumulated during 3 months of operations. Not enough to fight a Sith Lord directly, but enough to survive long enough to expose him. We broadcast the confrontation. Let the galaxy see what their Supreme Chancellor really is. Rex removed his helmet, meeting Frank's gaze. My brothers across the galaxy, they'll be ordered to kill Jedi. I can't stop that. But if we can prove the Chancellor is Sith, if we can show them the truth. His voice cracked. Maybe some will resist. Maybe we can save some of them from being used as executioners. Five stepped forward. We're with you, all of us, whatever happens. Frank looked at the assembled team. A teenage Padawan who'd learned to question everything she'd been taught. A clone captain who'd chosen free will over programming. An ancient Jedi master watches his order's destruction approach. And soldiers bred for war who decided to fight for truth instead of orders. Against them, the most powerful Sith Lord in galactic history, commanding the apparatus of the Republic government, controlling clone armies across thousands of worlds, orchestrating genocide from the shadows. The odds were impossible. Frank had faced the impossible before. Here's the plan, he said. Echo, get to the Senate relay station. Prepare to broadcast on all channels. Rex, take your squad and intercept any clone units moving toward the Jedi Temple. Delay them, sabotage the activation sequence if you can. Ahsoka, he turned to her. You're with me. We're going after Palpatine directly. A confrontation. Ahsoka's hand drifted to her lightsabers. Frank, he's a Sith Lord, even with both of us. I don't plan to fight him. Frank's expression was cold certainty. I plan to make him fight, make him reveal himself, force him to use the dark side on camera in front of the entire galaxy. Then it doesn't matter if he kills us. The truth will be exposed. Yoda approached Frank, leaning heavily on his stick. Sacrifice yourself you may, die you might, peace you seek. Frank thought of his family, of the carousel where everything ended and the Punisher began. of every life he'd taken in the name of justice, every line he'd crossed, every piece of himself he'd burned away. "I don't seek peace, Master Yoda, I seek punishment for the guilty." Frank met the ancient Jedi's gaze. Palpatine orchestrated the deaths of millions. Clones, Jedi, civilians, all casualties in his game. "If stopping him costs my life," he shrugged. "Small price." Yoda's eyes glistened. "A Jedi you could have been, in another life, another galaxy. The Force you lack, but the Spirit." He placed a small hand on Frank's arm. "Strong in you it is. May that strength be enough." Frank turned to the assembled team. "We move now. Palpatine won't expect an attack during Senate session. He'll be surrounded by politicians. Protected by the Senate Guard, comfortable in his power. That's our advantage. We hit him in the open, force him to respond, broadcast everything." "And if he doesn't reveal himself?" Ahsoka asked. "If he remains calm, denies everything?" "Then I provoke him." Frank's tone promised violence. "I've interrogated terrorists, cartel leaders, war criminals. I know how to make people drop their masks. Palpatine has been hidden behind this benevolent chancellor persona for years. I'll strip that away, piece by piece, until the monster shows itself." They moved out, scattering to their assignments. Echo toward the relay station, Rex and his squad toward the Jedi Temple, Frank and Ahsoka toward the Senate chambers. Yoda remained in the meditation room, alone with the Force and his terrible knowledge. "Done all I can, I have," he whispered to the empty chamber. "In the hands of a man without the Force, the galaxy's fate now rests. Ironic, perhaps, or the Force's will working through unexpected vessels." He closed his eyes. "Protect them I cannot, but believe in them I do." Across Coruscant, pieces moved into position for the final confrontation. Frank Castle walked toward the Senate building's main entrance, Ahsoka beside him, both knowing they were heading into a battle that would reshape the galaxy. The Senate was in session. Chancellor Palpatine presided over debates about war funding, speaking with practiced compassion about sacrifice and duty. Senators listened, trusting the kindly old man who'd guided them through crisis after crisis. None of them knew they were watching a performance, a Sith Lord playing statesman while orchestrating galactic genocide. But Frank Castle knew, and in moments everyone would know. He pushed through the Senate entrance, past security checkpoints that didn't register him in the Force, past guards who saw only a Republic operative escorting a Jedi commander. They entered the main chamber, a massive spherical room, floating platforms holding senators from 1,000 worlds, all centered around the Chancellor's podium. Palpatine was mid-speech, discussing recent victories in the Outer Rim. His voice carried warmth, grandfatherly concern, the perfect lie. Frank drew his blaster and fired a shot into the ceiling. The chamber exploded into chaos. Senators screamed, dove for cover. Senate guards raised weapons. And on his podium, Chancellor Palpatine's expression shifted, just for a microsecond, from benevolent leader to something ancient and hungry. Then the mask was back, perfect control restored. "Arrest them," Palpatine commanded, voice shaking with manufactured fear. "Assassins, protect the Senate." But Frank was already moving, Ahsoka beside him, both racing toward the Chancellor's podium as the galaxy watched through broadcasting equipment that Echo had just hijacked. Every screen on Coruscant showed the Senate chamber. Every transmission across the holonet carried the confrontation. Trillions of beings across thousands of worlds watched as Frank Castle, the man who didn't exist in the Force, went to war against the darkness that had consumed the galaxy. "Chancellor Palpatine," Frank's voice echoed through the chamber, "you're under arrest for treason, conspiracy, and orchestrating the Clone Wars. Surrender now or be taken by force." Palpatine's eyes met Frank's across the chamber, and in that moment, Frank saw the truth behind the mask, ancient hatred, bottomless power, and the cold calculation of a predator who'd already won. The Sith Lord smiled. "How unfortunate," Palpatine said softly. "I had hoped to avoid this unpleasantness." His hands rose. Lightning crackled between his fingers, pure dark side energy, death-given form. And the galaxy watched as their supreme chancellor revealed exactly what he was. The battle for Coruscant's soul had begun.